You use this great analogy of traffic. So I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Charlotte's got this incredible growth. And all of a sudden, I'm driving down the road and I'm on these streets, which there was never traffic. And all of a sudden, there's all these people here. And there's a lot of, so I finally found the positives in it. It's like, it's an amazing city. People want to be here, a lot of opportunities, new restaurants, sports teams, right? All this stuff's happening. But at times, you could be like, man, this is frustrating. And you could be mad about it. It's like, I'm going to drive my girls to school. We have a lot of fun. Next thing you know, inevitably, someone's going to cut you off. They're in a rush. They're going to tailgate you. All these different things happen. And your mind's going to get shut down. You're going to get really angry. And you see it. You see other people doing it. You might be doing it yourself. But you had this whole thing about being mentally tough to where you set the anchor. You know it's going to happen, right? No different than when you walk into the office and you have this person there and you have this commitment to this person and you want them to succeed and you want the business to succeed. But there's something there, whatever. It could be a negative. It could be overly happy. It could be maybe you have this perception they're not getting the job done. You just don't know. And every time you see them or every time they speak, it's just like you're going to go there. But you have to be mentally tough to anchor yourself, to think about the ways that there's something good here. Because you can't possibly be happy all of the time. There are going to be things that set you off. But that mentally tough component, of course, applies to being uncommon. It applies to having this unwavering commitment because the leader has to think through how are they going to make this possible for everyone? How are they going to give everyone the opportunity, the hope and the opportunity that you guys talk about as well, to continue to go forward? And so you, as a leader, don't get overly stressed out and frustrated and angry. And that goes a lot to being mentally tough, right? That was a big episode. I mean, all your stuff is, and your snippets on LinkedIn or videos and keynote speeches and the work that you do. But being mentally tough applies a lot of this because, like we talked about before, things aren't going to go your way. As you said, everyone in the audience raises their hand. Of course, everyone's given up on something. There's always been something there. It might be something small, maybe something big. But being mentally tough is, like you said, grit. There's a lot in that. And I want to just touch on that podcast, if you will, of those episodes that I just talked about in traffic and being in the office. And you talked about, I believe that you gave him a fictional name of Fred. And, Fred maybe has a lot to offer, but you get very frustrated every time you see him. So what are you going to do about it?
Yeah, I think you go back to that phrase, Eric, of mental toughness. Obviously, I believe in it deeply, but it's one of those terms that is used all the time. And I don't think people understand what it is. They definitely lack, I think a lot of people lack the how-to, the mechanics in it. And the reality is that your mindset, your emotional state is a key driver of what you do and how you do it. That's life. Your attitude, your emotional state, your mindset is a huge driver of what you do. You operate at your best, you do your best work when you're in a positive and productive mindset, and you are not at your best when you're not. And what mental toughness is, and make it real simple, is the ability to create the emotional mindset and energy that you need to take the action in the situation you're in. It's the ability to create the emotional state necessary for the situation that you're in. And we use the term emotional agility because different situations call for different mindsets. And the ability to get into the productive emotional state for situation A, you mentioned driving. So when you get in your car and you drive and the freeways are in Charlotte, you better be in the right mindset to handle that traffic. When you get to the office, you better be in the right mindset to handle the stuff that's going to happen in the office. You go to pick up your girls at school, you better be in the right mindset to be with your girls. You then have a conversation with your wife, you better be in the right mindset. You have to be agile emotionally. And you may have to have like 7 or 8 different mindsets throughout the day. It is a skill. It's a competency. It's the ability to get into that mindset that the situation requires. And there's mechanics involved. There's technique involved. The vast majority of people that I observe are not emotionally agile. They're just not. They're fragile. They're not agile. They're fragile. And as soon as something disruptive happens, they're not emotionally equipped to handle it. And they get upset. They get angry. They get depressed. They get fearful. And most of the things, not all the things, but most of the things that people get upset about are predictable. They knew they were going to happen. You use the example of driving like I do. You're going to get tailgated when you drive. It's going to happen. If you get angry, it's because you're an amateur at driving. You're an amateur emotionally. And there are a lot of amateurs out there. But if you drive, you're going to get tailgated. You're going to get cut off. Why get angry? You know it's going to happen. Be prepared. It is not mentally tough to get angry when somebody does something weird on the highway. Of course that happens. I use flying as an example in an airport. You know, if you fly with any degree of regularity or even irregular, there's going to be delays. There's going to be long lines. There's going to be unhappy people. It's going to be flight cancellations. It's going to happen. You get upset, you're an amateur. I have taken this last year to challenging my audiences. Don't be an amateur at your life. Meaning the situations that pop up in your life, in your marriage, your friendships, your business, when you're driving, you're traveling, don't be an amateur. Meaning don't allow yourself to get pulled into a negative emotional state in response to the inevitable situations you knew you were going to face. That's an amateur. Be a pro at your life. It's going to happen. Be prepared. And if you're not prepared, that's a you issue. So mental toughness is the ability to get out of a disruptive emotional state into a productive emotional state immediately. And it's a skill. And here's the really challenging thing, back to what I said a moment ago. It's not a feeling. It's a disciplined choice. And it has to do, I don't have time to get into all the details, it has to do with focus and self-talk. Because those are the two things that create your emotions. What you focus on, give your attention to, and how you talk to yourself. That's how you produce emotion. So if someone tailgates me and I focus on myself, how irritated I am, and I call the guy a moron, I'm going to feel negative, combative, and I'm going to be upset. And I created that. He didn't. I did. I could have said to myself, I could have focused on safety. And I could have said to myself, you know what? Be safe, just let the guy go. Check my side view mirror and move over, let him go. Could have done that. But if I choose a negative focus, a negative self-talk, I will produce negative emotion. That guy didn't do that. I did. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, I rewound on that podcast many times because you talked about if you focus on yourself, if you focus on things that you don't like, or you focus on things that make you mad. Because the other thing you can do is do something about it, right? I believe is make a change in whatever your habits are and whatever you're doing every day to become better. But you use the word amateur, and the way you say the word, you're an amateur. Like that's a hard truth. You know, we could say it with friends and you can kind of joke around, but there you use the word being elite or you're being an amateur. And you just hear that. And when you hear it coming from someone like yourself, you're like, ooh, that hits you right there. Like, what are you going to do about it? And that's a hard truth. In case you haven't noticed, we love podcasts. In fact, you should have one. We'll even build it for you. A podcast, that is. Simply email me at eric@sportse.io. We'll get your podcast published fast.